Hey guys, this morning we're going to talk about the placebo effect. And this is a critical issue because we've lost our way. We've lost our ability, right, with our spirituality to understand just how much power is involved in the placebo effect that we create. And if we can understand this a little bit more clear, we can see the picture that says 1,000 words that cannot lie to you. And you see, I think with a universal language, right, a universal connection, and you have the same ability. And this ability is so far beyond the mind that you can use 100% of your brain and do things that's so far beyond the mind doesn't understand. And we've lost this ability. This is an ability that we all have. We have dimensional thinking. We have remote viewing. We have deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. We all have this embedded in our DNA. It's a supernatural power. And we've lost this ability. The ability to do things that we're designed to do in our own DNA with genetic memory, our ancestry tools in our DNA, the book of life. And when we don't really understand the mind, what we're doing, we're creating the wrong placebo effect that's spreading like a virus, affecting the whole world. And you wouldn't believe in a million years that we have the power to spread such a bad virus like a zombie apocalypse, like a comatization. This will explain every single thing that's going on in the world if you listen to me. More profoundly than any information you've ever received before in your life. And I can promise you that. I will not let you down. I will never let you down. There's one thing I won't do. The Father will not let you down. And believe me, the Father's in me. And just have faith in that for a moment. That's all you need to do. Have a leap of faith and believe in me, because everything I'm going to tell you will make basic common sense to you, and you relate to every single thing in your own life. That's why I'm going to give you a really specific explanation about this. I went through my life in the last 60 years coming into post-human stage, transhuman stage, zombie apocalypse, body snatching morals, whatever we want to call it, doesn't matter. There's 1,000 different names for this. But reality is this. Animals that go around circles over the earth, and 550,000 cattle died like this in Australia in 2019, and 80,000 horses. And you know, that became alarming. Right? That set off a real big alarm to Australian biologists, right? And Australian biologists where Jeremy Griffiths is. This is the biggest, most powerful man on earth that wrote the book Freedom that I keep talking about. You know, 16,000 top scholars on the same page. And, you know, when he does the most powerful biological evidence with DNA and mental health research in the most powerful book on earth, the Holy Grail of life, the freedom of everything we suffer from. Just think about this for a moment. Okay, he's the biggest biologist connected to 16,000 top scholars in the world that's keeping an eye on nature, fauna, and everything's happening around the world. That's why he's the leading man. He's connected to every single one of them worldwide. His web is an amazing web. And if you don't understand the web that he's attached to, then you know nothing about life. Because this is the leading biologist worldwide in all our fauna, animals, and our biology and our DNA, every single living thing on earth, with every study done worldwide. He's connected to the lot. This is the top scientists from the IPCC science reports worldwide, and they're private enterprises, they're NASA, they're corporations from all over the world. Some are working in the governments, some are not, some are privatizations, and Jeremy's very private. And yet he leads the forefront. He's private and leads the whole forefront. Not a government agent, not NASA. He is deadly private, okay? But seen as being the best biologist in the whole world to lead society, because the 16,000 top scholars hail him, and his books will be the answer and the cure of the human condition is going to save humanity. And that's a big statement, right? That's a really powerful statement. And it's one that's being avoided the most worldwide. And I think everybody should revise their perception and just stop for one moment and think about this as the most powerful declaration on earth, the book of life, DNA. And they study DNA in every living thing. And every living thing has a personality. We're attached to all living things. We have a relationship with everything. right? We are DNA, RNA. We are a messenger or an actor. I've made a lot of videos about this. We're a messenger or an actor, okay? And the people living in the positive fields, in 27 biofields in their spirituality, they live in their primordial state and control their business from the outside in. And some of those people can use 100% of their brain and a perfect aura clockwise 24 hours a day, while the rest is anti-clockwise. They live in their mind in a 5-sense world in their consciousness. Consciousness is only a middle event, a middle present illusion, imagination. It's mentality. And that's a 5-sense world with a high IQ that's been engineered by atheists on reverse psychology engineering, right? With evolution mutation and artificial intelligence and with the grammar that we select. And when we mutate consistently from generation to generation with this kind of behavior and this kind of education, we become mentally institutionalized with voices on our mind. And as been declared worldwide, we listen to the wrong voice in the mind. And that's a declaration we just need to take with some basic common sense. We're listening to the wrong voices in our mind, declared by 45,000 teachers worldwide, 16,000 top scholars, and that's being the light that's coming down to the nail of the problem. We listen to the wrong voices in our mind that affects the human conditioning in 100,000 different levels and 100,000 different inflection points, and many beyond the point of return, right? That's decisions we've been making from generation to generation that affects each and every one of us with a placebo effect that's anti-clockwise in our DNA, in our own body, in our body cells, in our aura. It's going anti-clockwise. It only repairs 3.5 hours a night, but we have the capacity to repair 24 hours a day. So think about that. Light, power, and energy is in your body cells, okay? It's called divine power to command nature. The correct format and the correct words, and the grammar means the world to you. Because if you don't use correct grammar, you're not in the correct EMP, intuitive codependent power, which is the most powerful power in the world with the correct placebo effect. Clockwise, faith, in your own biological system, in your own natural selection in life, in your own natural order. And when you use it correctly with righteousness, the 8 tools of righteousness is loyalty, honor, respect, morals, inspiration, and encouragement. When they're in the correct barcode tune, you're in a codependent power. And people's completely lost that concept, especially the science, right? They're so wrong about this. They have no idea what they're talking about, okay? Look, placebo effect, okay? The top scholars worldwide that says light, power, energy, and vibration and frequency is the most powerful enlightenment tool. It's not. It's actually not. It's science. It is the EMP pulse of your codependent relationships. Relationships are a key word. Very key word, right? We don't have the relationship because we're trapped in mentality, in a personality, not in our spirituality. And because we're not in our spirituality, we're not using the correct EMP pulse. Like, look at the movie Matrix documentary. Those who think instinctively tune out of the program. Instinctive thinking is thinking outside the mind, not with the mind you see in the movie Limitless, okay? Bread manna, a drug that Moses and Christ used, we made in Australia, made a lot of videos about this. And I put 10 very critical videos in this timeline here, including the video I made yesterday, which went viral, I think you should watch, about the most powerful testimony on earth that you really need to pay attention to all my friends and followers. And Alex Jones, who's speaking to Joe Rogan, if you listen to a video with him for about 5-10 minutes, and you listen to my video, it gives you the great explanation where people are so trapped in literal behavior and science and explanations. Because the words we're using today are so complicated, and we use so many selective words with unnatural intelligence, and it becomes very complicated. And today's things are so complicated in this world with putting pieces together and seeing the picture of the tails of 1,000 words, but it's actually 10,000 times easier than you think. The mind's very complicated, and it's been designed to be so complicated with IQ and grammar. And when the experts are talking, they're used to talking from the grammar they're brought up on, mostly, right? Like a good mouthpiece uses all the science you can and all the expressions, right, that we're designed with for education to try and get all the wording right and try to speak correctly. But speech, right, and grammar can confuse things with spellbound so badly that it gets so complicated. The mind's very complicated with this kind of intelligence because it's really not natural. Right? When we don't naturally select, we don't use basic common sense with basic words. We get into all the science and think we're better than everyone else by explaining things, by being sophisticated or being fancy with fancy words. And it's really not the way. That's what the problem is. IQ's raising, the consciousness is raising, which is a mental event, and that's raising worldwide. And if you have a look at this, they're both raising. Consciousness raising to a higher level is raising the IQ. And IQ only makes good at what you do, in fact, not intelligent. So we get more confused, more complicated, more voices in our mind from our ancestry tools and ancestry genetic memory. And it's the wrong adverse effect because it's 5 sensitive negative fields. And it's just a mathematical beauty to work things out with. Your mind's only a mathematical beauty to work things out with. IQ is based on 98% memory. It's a memory box, and all the voices that tells you what to do, like Christ consciousness, or the voices that sounds like heavenly, right? They're just a personality, right? And people can't get that concept right. They believe in their own truth, manifest their own truth, and come to their own conclusion with reasoning. And that's inside the mind and 5 senses, reasoning. Reasoning is selecting the grammar you're brought up on and educated knowledge with atheism tools, evolution mutation, and artificial intelligence. It's selecting. A selection you're engineered with. And the fact is that reasoning is what we call the age of nefarious because it's 5 sensitive negative fields and it's only personalities. It doesn't have any real molecule of shame, because if you're thinking critically about a tough decision, okay, the voice tells you do it, and don't do it. Okay, the voices talk to you inside your mind. Like, should I do it or shouldn't I? Oh, maybe you should do it because of this reason or that reason, and maybe you shouldn't because of this reason and that reason. So you're trying to work it out with reasoning, and it'll give you 5 reasons why you should and 5 reasons why you shouldn't if it's a tough, critical decision. So when we think critically, this is a personality with reasoning, right? And we think that's the right way because that's the way atheist works, and that's understandable. But we only use this part of our mind 1 to 5% to work things out with, to go to work and pay the bills, etc. The fact is we're using that 95 to 99% of the time, which is anti-clockwise. We're supposed to think instinctively 95 to 99% of the time, the other way around. So we're anti-clockwise. That's why our aura only works 3.5 hours a night in dream time, right? Because it's only in dream time that it works, right? Which is when we are unconscious or outside the mind. So the consciousness is not aware of what's going on in the unconsciousness or outside the mind. It's the correct grammar, because this is the mind, it's mental. And that's the correct grammar. And we live in our mind with these voices in our mind that tell us what to do all the time. And now we do what we're told all the time because we believe in our own truth, manifest our own truth, and come to our own conclusion with reason by design, for educated knowledge. A child's a genius between 0 and 7 and can master on a computer game between 3 and 7 times faster than an adult with the highest IQ in the world. His aura is perfect. And I've made a lot of videos about this. Then if he goes anti-clockwise, and when he goes to school into his mind, mentally institutionalized. And we discover that. It becomes a mental institutionalization. Then your body starts going corruption confusion during the daytime. The 130 nucleosome molecules from genetic repair kit starts to shut down with genetic memory. And 2 molecules of mentality shuts down. The gut feeling survival mode is a very predisposed mode for life. They call it the chakra. Okay? Gut feeling survival mode is a very predisposed mode for life in fight-flight mode. And this is where the scientists get wrong. They're saying that we're all living in fight-flight mode right now. Well, we are. Right now, the whole world's spreading with a placebo effect where fear, stress, and anxiety has gone through the roof, right? And affecting every human being on earth with delusional parasitosis, because we have got so much mixed information and so much different science, so many new belief systems and new age and everything else, and political, religious behavior, the whole lot put together has the same outcome, right? It's all the same bullshit when it comes down to the crunch. And we're in mentality, trapped in a personality, and we lost our genetic process and our genetic memory of our ancestor tools because we don't use them. From generation to generation, we normalise what's more yesterday non-stop with the tools that we designed with. That's why we're going into an extinction like this and going to every adverse effects that we're seeing. So let's get back to the animals in Australia. 550,000 cattle died like this in 2019, okay? Now, I told you, I'm in tight with the top biologists in the whole world because my DNA leads to the research of curing the human condition. So I've got the most positive voltage reliability in my DNA, okay? With harnessing the power and the power to repair your own DNA and voltage reliability to repair, genetic repair kit. And, you know, the study done me was, I found the cure human conditioning. They found that first with me, right, and a few people in jail. In 2008, they found our biology with our DNA with the most perfect aura that could preserve DNA. And we discovered that 7 years in jail and cycle of life, which made a lot of videos about, 7 years in jail, a cycle of life. You go back into your natural environment and find freedom of prison you cannot find outside. And that's astonishing because it's a natural environment where natural selection takes place. It's a family unit, right? You're in jail in a concrete jungle and there's no systems. And when you're in there, you have to live in a brotherhood, fatherhood type relationship to get along with everyone. And you kind of learn to live with your enemy and love thy enemy as much as your neighbor, right? There's a concept to this that I explain in my videos. And we have the same 3 meals a day and the same clothes every day. So it's like the Aboriginals in the concrete jungle. In the jungle. And that's why I call it this a concrete jungle, because it's exactly like the outback, right? In the Australian Aborigines, the largest human beings found on Earth that has the most positive aura and can do things that we cannot do. The most loving, compassionate creatures on Earth found just in a nick of time, okay, that has an aura so powerful they can grow 10 times more fruit with 10 times more nutrition value, and they have a relation with fauna and nature, and it thrives compared to everywhere else in the world that's collapsed between 38 and 98% worldwide, except for one place in Australia in the outback and the Mayan jungles. And Graham Hancock, he sat there and had a talk on Joe Rogan about how the fauna in the Mayan jungles, right, and the soil there was far more sophisticated and advanced than any scientific knowledge and any growing that we've ever done in human history. Our fauna is collapsing between 38 and 98% worldwide. And no matter what we do, we collapse fauna. And this is the most powerful fauna in the world, never touched by humanity, never manipulated in any way, shape, or form by our civilization. And when you go to the Australian Aboriginals, they have a double Y double X chromosome, 450 years old, way off the grid with a sixth sense, so powerful they can feel you coming from miles away. And they've been watching what you've been doing for the last 250 years in Australia, killing all their family, bombing all of them in the 40s and the 50s. The Stalin generation being bad as today, but they used bombs and put them all over Australia and killed many of them. 72,000 had their blood drained in 1929 because they had the same abilities as Christ and the disciples. And no one knew that. So the Westerns have really been lying about this when they came down there and killed them all and burned them all because they could resurrect. They had all their supernatural power, right? And there's only a few of them left today. But every one of them can do every single thing that Christ can and more. And that's the astonishing part, right? They could resurrect. They had metals delivered, the ESP, remote urine telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu, predicting the future, prevent what's going to happen. And they're beyond the mind, so far beyond the mind, but there's only a few of them left. And we found some Shilon masterminds, 257 years old, with birds of the same, right? 185 and 195 years old. And Samoans, right, we got them 9 feet tall over there, 350 years old, and 10 feet tall in Australia, 450 years old. And they're right off the grid, and they've got a sixth sense and stay right away from Westerners, because Westerners do not know what they do. They always say, one man crazy, one man God's crazy in here. And we discovered they're right? We discovered that these are the last human beings born on Earth that can do what Christ can and more, with the most positive aura in the world, and they create 10 times more fruit with 10 times more nutrition value. And we spread our virus like a virus with mental abilities, right? With mental placebo effect that's anti-clockwise, and spreads like a virus and affects fauna, nature, and animals like this. It's a placebo effect. It's the magnetic fields. It's our EMP pulses. We're in the wrong EMP pulse. So we listen to the wrong voice of mine for that reason, right? And we're spreading like a virus that's affecting fauna, nature, birds falling out the sky with vertigo, right? And affecting our mind syndrome at the same time that we're doing it. Our mind's doing this. Our mind power in the negative fields and 5 senses and consciousness, a mental event, a mental process, illusion, imagination, drives the placebo effect affecting everybody. It's affecting animals going around circles all over the earth, right? In more than 800 locations, okay? 550,000 cattle die like this in Kansas. 650,000 sheep die like this in the Middle East. And fauna in the wild, animals have been found in Africa and many other locations, right? Up to 20 or 30,000 dead, right? In many locations, right? A lot of them is just going around circles and get vertigo and get balance again. Birds have been falling out the skies, right, all over the world the last decade. And these birds, in a study done, right, many of them drop dead all over the place. You've seen those videos, but a lot of them, you've also seen where they drop and then they get all their bearing back and fly off again. So they get their balance back. So there's different outcomes here, and we're seeing the same with animals and birds, right? We're seeing them going round circles because we're losing our sixth sense, our spirituality, and it's literally changing the magneto fields on our whole planet. Think about this for a moment, okay? In 2009, when they discovered the cure of everything, right? The first thing they did was in prison, this is where they were doing the biggest mental health research and the biggest studies when they found the cure for this, right? So they started the placebo effect immediately when we realized we preserve DNA, okay? We realized we have a self-preservation made for life that comes back in a cycle of life in 7 years. And it's in 2008 they discovered, they first went in this research after declaring post-human status in 99. So they went into research and started DNA evidence right in prison in Australia in 2001 with the biggest mental health research. And that was ground level immediately to try and find the cure of the human condition that's going to save humanity, because we're going to 6 mass extinction, stripping the sixth sense for the 6th time worldwide, affecting everything in life and us as well, with mental disorders and gene defects going through the roof, accelerating, right, worldwide, and it's affecting all of us with this kind of placebo effect. When it affects animals like this worldwide, birds like this worldwide, and fish are now going around oceans in 17 places as well, and that's the first time that's coming through, right? Volcanoes blowing and magnetic fields changing the shaman on the planet. I think we should pay attention, right, to the placebo effect, spreading like a virus, affecting each and every one of us to a degree, to one degree or another, because it's going to explain every single thing going on in your life right now, right, with a completely different adverse effect, where you see something you never thought about, because you need to think about it. Spirituality. We're in the greatest psychological warfare and the greatest spiritual warfare in human history, and people are living their mind in their psychology, okay? They're living on screens in a 5-sense world, 8 hours a day on average, and that's 5 senses. We're living in book smart education, and he said, she said of the documents, and we're more lost than ever, and we can't communicate with our family members and friends in real life with codependent feelings and codependent relationships. Like, where's the love, man? Where's the real love? We knew that in 2001, right? Black IP came out after this declaration, made. Where is the love, man? Where's the real love? That was 2001, okay? Okay, there's another powerful song written in Australia, right? Where's the care factor? Where's the care factor? People don't have a care factor anymore, not a real one, not a real down-to-earth one, not an honest one, right? You create a reputation by word of mouth, not on some kind of market strategy on a screen all day, by word of mouth. And people don't create a reputation by word of mouth anymore, and that's one thing I did my whole life. I always create a reputation by word of mouth. I always believe being down to earth, right, is the best policy, right? Okay, honesty is the best policy and being down to earth. And when you live by those tools from the shit you go through your own life, because you do, you go through crap yourself, and I went through a lot of crap myself. And, I made a lot of videos about this, and I explained this in my 10, right? The book of Numbers, right, in the Bible, 10 very critical videos of information that no one's telling you. So please take the time to watch these 10 videos in this link on this post. And a special video I made yesterday, right, because it's very powerful, and it's going to help you a lot to understand what's going on across the world and how to deal with this. Because we have a solution, a genuine one, right? The crossover. And the crossover is a correct expression. Think about Abraham, right? He was a Hebrew, and Hebrew stood for crossover. Crossover means you're not living in your mind in a personality mentality. You're living in your spirituality, thinking outside the mind, like you see in the movie Limitless, where you can use 100% of your brain with a vortex of information with a universal language. That's what this movie represents in metaphor. And when you know how to use this ability, it's a cosmic laws of life. It's cosmic universal language, and it's feeling, right? It's not thinking. And I made a lot of information about what it's about feelings. It's about feelings, not thinking. Your mind's only made by beauty to work things out with. IQ's only based on 9% memory. It's just a memory box. Consciousness is only a mental event. Okay, so it's mentality. IQ, consciousness, and mentality, 5 senses in a 5D world, and a 5D world is only light, power, to mnemonic, because it's only a personality. That's why your 6th sense takes you to the 6D world. This, right? The third eye is a picture that tells you 1,000 words cannot lie to you. Dimensional thinking, remote viewing, mental telepathy, ESP, and many other abilities. Gives you the supernatural power that you're embedded with in your own DNA, with 27 biofields, biosensors, biosphere. We have 32 senses. We only live in 5% mentality all the time. And that's what the problem is. Our sixth sense is 27 biofields. And when they're hooked in correctly with your EMP pulses, with a relationship, you have a codependent relationship, a codependent power, divine power to command nature. Okay, you have a codependent relationship, and you can only do that if you're totally innocent, like a child who's a genius, who has a perfect aura and knew what he was doing. But then he went to school to be mentally institutionalized, to become a personality with mentality, with reasoning, and then he comes out of school and he starts to reject his parents, say they're all dinosaurs, right? And that's how he rejects that DNA. And the 24th chromosome goes in dormancy. And that's the woman she was supposed to follow, that has all the supernatural power. And you can see it in studies that are research. We do have 24 chromosomes, but it's in dormancy. So it's 85 to 93% of brain. So it's 27 biofields. And we can only think instinctively 1 to 5%. We're supposed to think instinctively 95 to 99%. Not the other way around. That's what the problem is. We listen to the wrong voices in our mind. It's only a personality. And that's why it's 45,000 teachers and 16,000 top scholars have agreed that we listen to the wrong voice of mind. And Plato's the greatest philosopher of all time, wrote 15 books about this. Einstein knew, so did Hawkins, but they didn't know how to cure this problem. And, Plato wrote about a certain family tree, a certain bloodline that never suffered the human condition, had all these abilities. And that was all the apostles through the Bible that we know about. And that's why we found out through DNA that we can do what Christ can and more. And that means every apostle in that bloodline, if we follow the correct family tree, and we all can. We all have the same ability in our 24th chromosome that goes right back to the tree of life. That's why we've got to live with the tree of life of the woman's seed, because it goes right back so that every one of us has the same genetic memory from Christ himself to do what he can, and every apostle in that family tree. It's embedded in our DNA, the book of life. And we know that with DNA studies done. We know the truth, and the truth that's going to set us free and liberate us from everything else that's going on in this world. And it is the greatest time to be alive when you get it, and you don't get confused with everything else, and understand how confusion the mind really is, and what kind of placebo effect it projects, not only through the atmosphere, but back at you and your own DNA, because that's what the problem is. Every Western's got 1,000 to 7,000 defective genes. Okay, mental sores going through the roof, and they can't face the truth, can't handle it, and they do not know what they do. They keep on coming to the same conclusion on reverse psychology, and they don't even know what they're doing to themselves, and they don't even believe it. They have amnesia. How would they know? We have amnesia in our genetic process and genetic ancestry tools. So how would we know when we can't use them? Because we have amnesia, and I know how to wake you up from amnesia and the reincarnation trap to break free for 1,000 years to create heaven and earth with immortality. That's what it's all about. It always was. Okay, there's a time we're coming into to create heaven and earth. And I go into all the deep explanations about this. And, my DNA has been declared the book of life, which means I know, because I do a genetic repair. And that's what was discovered in my DNA, right, after massive research, that we can repair our own DNA. But it's only one way out of doing that, right? People depend on science, medication, prana, the whole lot, and that's out of fear, and they believe in the system, which is understandable, the way the world is today, right? Everybody depends on it. However, this is a brand new discovery, something that's never been discovered before in life. Now, we talk about longevity worldwide at the moment, and so does Harari in the fourth industrial revolution with AI and artificial intelligence. And he says we have to replace the natural selection life with insulin design, okay, which is unnatural selection. Where Jeremy Griffiths and the top scholars in the world, and Nobel Prize winners, they're doing a natural selection. But 95% of people is going to choose the unnatural selection because they don't have faith, right? And that's why we're going into this new timeline, right, of sevenfold wisdom knowledge to live with the tree of life. And that changeover is a crossover between 220 and 227. This is the last 7 years of timeline deception, and the first 7 years of timeline of sevenfold wisdom knowledge, a crossover. The timeline of Jacob's travel right? I've gone into a lot of explanation about this, and all the evidence about this is 2/22/27 in your climate clock. A 7-year countdown put up by the same biologists, right? And trust me, they're on the money. That's all you need to have faith in. And the 27th September 2/27 happens to be exactly 2,000 years when Christ was baptized by John. 27 September 27. So trust me, just stick to that. Scholars know it's exactly 2,000 years when the inflection point happens. What does that mean? The inflection point means the point of no return. When you go through the rabbit hole and stick your head at the cave, as Placebo describes in 17 books, right? You go through the ladder, Jacob's ladder. He describes how to go through the ladder, right, to the light of the end tunnel. We're all talking about being in the tunnel and going to the light of the end tunnel when we die, right? Okay, we do it now. We do it in real time, wide awake in dream time. And we take you through the light of the end tunnel, and you face the death experience with your personality, and your personality dies, and your mentality dies, and you go back in your spirituality, back in your childhood. And I explain it very profoundly. With the adverse effects of our followers, you'll see their testimonies going through the great rebirth and the great crossover. The crossover is magnificent. And believe me, it's 10 times more powerful than your reality, and the mind has no idea. That's why we take you right out of your mind and right out of your shell in your spirituality, your soul. And then you see it yourself with your own third eye, and you feel it. You see the future. You see what happens when people die and cross over, and that beautiful location where they don't want to come back from. You feel it, you see it, and it's wow, the most unbelievable time to be alive. And this is the cure for every single thing. Every single thing else in this world doesn't matter. Can you hear what I'm saying to you? You need to restore your spirituality, okay? That will release the mentality and personality because it's controlling you. And that's what the problem is. The voices inside your mind is ultimately designed for extinction because it's only a personality, and you live in a personality. Do not be afraid of this, because this is the absolute Alpha Omega liberation in a new time where time since their life preserves for 1,000 years. And your body's going to go into a transformation for 3.5 years where it's going to have longevity and start to regenerate, repair, and go in a time where time since their life preserves for 1,000 years in a new dimensional field, in a new world, right? And we're going into 6 max extinction strip in the 6th sense for the 6th time. And most people won't make it through this. They won't make it. They just won't make it. And that's just how it is. And we have to get past that and release and let go of all our fears, everything that's troubling us so much and confusing us, and also making us live in our mind on a screen all day. We've got to get off screens, man. We've got to get a balance of ourselves because we've lost our balance, right? And we're so confused with stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia, and living in different rabbit holes. And if you don't go through the light in the tunnel and through every single rabbit hole, you do not know what you do until you do that. That's the point. Now, we talk about the matrix. Take the red pill and you can't go back. Once you cross over, it's an inflection point where you cannot go back. I take you through the 40-day test, and when you go through the inflection point, like Jay did, and I make that very, very powerful, the way Jay did, you cannot go back from there. You cannot lose ever again. You've been saved. You've gone through judgment. You've gone through the whole 9 yards, and you've been resurrected, and you've gone through the rebirth crossover. The minute you cross over, it's what the matrix tells you, right? Okay, take the red pill. You go through every rabbit hole and stick your head out the cave. Now, people go down every rabbit hole and find a beautiful balance. They're not evil, but they get comfortable in the comfort zone and they think they know everything about life, and they let their mind do that to them. But they didn't go crossover. They didn't go through the last inflection point. And most people fails this one and has to do the fasting again. Some have to do it 3 times because they think they know better, but they don't. They fail at one point. Once you cross over, you release your personality. But when you go through the rabbit hole, you can compose yourself and use your own mentality and your own language with perfect grammar and think that you got it all perfectly and sound perfect as well. But you're not, because you're using your mind and grammar. Once you break across and you go through the inflection point, you return to your childhood with a massive like, oh, wow, wow, like a massive shot of meth And honestly, it's a big, massive clarification, and it leaves you speechless and gobsmacked, where you also are very nervous at the same time because you're having a massive panic attack. I'm telling you, it's fight-flight mode. It's not what people think. It's a fight-flight mode. And that's why we're not fight-flight mode. Ice-cold showers and recreating the holy breath of life is a fight-flight mode, and balancing yourself. Where the science worldwide says we're trapped in fight-flight mode and we got to do it the other way around. That's not true. You balance fight-flight. Fight-flight is the best self-preservation of life, right? It creates too-much mentality and activates 130 nucleoside molecules. I should know. It's my DNA that leads this with the most powerful divine intervention and divine power through every hospital record, right? With that kind of ability, where I've cured things beyond their mind. 3 stents fitted after a major heart attack, grew brand new hearts around with that medication. Paralysed my neck down after dying for 23 minutes, declared dead for 23 minutes in 2012. And woke up 36 hours later in Ipswich Hospital, told I'll never walk again, paralysed me here down. Okay, get up and walked out, limped on my leg for 3.5 years. Go to a study 3.5 years later. They tell me for my Neuralink and my DNA, I've done it all myself and repaired everything. Grew brand new arms around my stents, never took medication, still smoked like a chimney, yet I repaired every single thing. And I died and I was paralysed my neck down, confirmed, because I was still limping on my right hand leg. In that moment they said, Kim, you can fix that leg yourself. It's the mind that oppresses it. But look at your history, you've done it all yourself. Many things in the biggest study done. You can fix your leg yourself. In that moment, they told me to go back to fight-flight mode. I stand up and realise I never even had faith myself in all the things that happened to me. All the things I'd done. I did not have real faith. I just thought it was either a miracle or some other explanation or misdiagnosed. And that's how I thought about everything in my life. Okay, the same way we all do. Don't have real, genuine faith in some of the things that happens to us. Yet I had abilities beyond the mind. And I was still confused about things. And at this moment, they told me I can fix my leg myself by going back to that moment, right, in fight-flight mode, because I refused to believe I was paralysed and got it moved down myself. In 45 minutes, I worked against it. And it was proven. So he said I can fix my leg myself. And then I stand up and I fix my leg like that after limping for 3.5 years. And that becomes the confirmation I could fix it myself, not only in front of them, but to myself. Man, I was confused about things that I did it myself. Oh, there was a misdiagnosis of the doctors. And when they told me it was not a misdiagnosis and I can do it myself, and my leg is the evidence that I had a stroke, and I didn't fix my leg when I got up and walked out of the table when my son walked in. I put my arms around his shoulders and walked out and never fixed my leg, never went back to that moment for that reason. As soon as my son walked in, I got up, I got my whole body to work in 45 minutes except for my right hand leg. And then I put my arm around his shoulders and limped on my leg for 3.5 years. I never went back to that moment. And they explained it to me. I thought, really? And then I got up and went back to that moment, what happened that day, and then I fixed my leg myself like that. And wow, I mean, seriously, that's a massive wow factor. And that was the first time I realised, my God, I could do this myself. And when they told me to study for 34 years that I was one of a kind, I never studied that, and I didn't even know it myself. Whoa. I mean, that's even more powerful, right? They're telling you about this and your DNA that led to all these things, and you're like, no way, man. You've got to be kidding me. This can't be real. I'm primordial being number one, the most powerful studies done for 34 years, mastering the mind, doing things that people can't do, and my DNA, it's literally the book of life and cure the human condition, and here we have the most powerful evidence in 2016. That my genetic process from 2008 to 2016 was profounding in a transformation, constantly transforming. I had a heart attack in 2008, 3 stents fitted, right? Died in 2012. They found my DNA in 2008 in the big mental health research in prison. And I cured bipolar, which was uncurable, with the study done. I cured bipolar, which was uncurable. And bipolar is basically the human conditioning, right? A disease they thought was non-curable. which is psychosis, schizophrenia, bipolar, the whole lot. And I proved it. And then I cured someone for 22 years in that hospital with schizophrenia, right? And schizophrenia and psychosis. 22 years in a hospital. And I cured her, right? In 5 hours, I cured her without medication. And she never took medication, never got locked up ever again after 22 years in a hospital. So that was a confirmation for me. And I did that in 2012. I never read the Bible. Just by learning mental health research and DNA in jail without reading the Bible or anything like that. Okay, I cured her in 2012, and that was the time that I died. Right? I died that year, the same year when I cured her, which is astonishing, right? Then I go through this transformation, and then this happens to me 3.5 years later. I'm standing here in Perth Hospital with 2 top bowlers and 2 top people from my biggest think tank, and they give me a 6.5-hour lecture about every study done on me and what they discovered, right, in the biggest think tank and all the reports. And I'm mind blown. I am dead set mind blown. But when he tells me to get up and fix my leg myself and go to that moment, and I do that, holy fuck, that just blew the whole meeting out the way. And I mean, this meeting was really, really powerful. Think about the biggest think tank in the world in the Starship Inquiry with godlike abilities and what they go into about these studies, right? And so powerful that it leads to every single thing that we are not that we're suffering from today, and also the fact that we can do what Christ can and more, because I can do everything Christ can, right? With the most powerful confirmation, right? With DNA studies done in hospital records, where I brought my own wife back to life 3 times, right? In hospital in 1992, Christine Ashley. She writes the most powerful poem through 2003, the one and only, worldwide number 1 for 8 months. And they interviewed her, right? And you know, the divine power that we have is not about me. It's about something we have, right? And if we connect it instinctively, man, you know, like my arresting officer said I've been kissed on the dick by an angel, right? And a lot of people said I've got an angel watching over me, or like I'm like a God. And some people call me God, right? In the underground world. And I was a Godfather type. But God is a label where, honestly, right, I ended up getting such a head swell myself, I thought I was invisible. And I was invisible. Right? They set me up for corruption. They had to get me up for corruption. I was totally invisible. And how else to explain this? Right? God gave me the gift to be literally invisible. And if you can see me on the internet events, I'm invisible. On those 6 events, I'm not on one camera. Every other person is, I'm invisible. Literally. Invisible on the cameras. Literally. And how do you explain this? Because it shows you what God does, right? To prove to you that he does exist with the most powerful confirmation on earth like this. He made me invisible, right in front of your eyes on CCTV in the biggest, most powerful confirmation by border security in the biggest think tank by the biggest security system in the world. And I think it's astonishing, right? But it leaves you gobsmacked when you go through shit like this. How do you explain all these things? You can't. But it's right there with the most powerful confirmation on earth. And imagine how they feel about it. Imagine how they feel about it. The biggest think tank and biggest bowlers, right, with all this confirmation. How do you think they feel? And they know that the whole world's full on affairs because they've got no faith. They're too much in fear, stress and anxiety and do not know what they do worldwide. They know this. When you go into all the information that comes with me, with Jan's bus accident, my wife being dead, and the miracles with me is just beyond the mind. And you can't get it wrong with my brother on the Kempsey bus accident where he says goodbye to 90 people and they confirmed every name because said goodbye to was the first name of the person that died in the bus. And he didn't know him. And they had made a confirmation there with one of those powerful miracles on the front page of Courier Mail. And my wife, 1992, peer reports, King Vice on the front page of paper. A king on the front page of paper, right? 17 current affairs shows as being a mastermind of loopholes to laws and manipulation and unravel things with a godlike power of a mastermind. It's a fact on 17 current affairs shows. And, you know, like, man, it's beyond the mind, right? But God showing you the divine power that we have. And in 2009, okay, they did a placebo test. And they took everyone with mental disorders, every mental disorder known to man, and they gave them half of a placebo medication and not the right medication, and they had exactly the same outcome. Right? They'd done a proper test on this. So the placebo medication had the same outcome That's all the mental disorder medication, which means every mental disorder tablet ever written about for bipolar, right, anxiety or whatever you want to talk about, is only a placebo effect and only an opinion. That's why they declared it's only an opinion, and all the books are wrong, all the science is wrong, all the medication's wrong. We don't need it. We can fix this naturally and organically by thinking outside the mind. Okay, so the placebo medication proves that your mind believes in the medication and has the same outcome, but it wasn't medication. It was in a placebo medication, half of them, and had exactly the same outcome as those on medication. 2009, they got 12,000 people to meditate with the quantum mechanics of a relationship, and they spread a virus across the planet in 2009. So powerful, it brought down mental disorders, D&D effects, violence and murder rates, right, 45 to 65%, all the way across the planet over the next 12 months, and then it went back to accelerating again. 12,000 people spread a virus so powerful it had this kind of adverse effect where even fauna was starting to replenish. Listen to what I'm saying to you. Faunas collapse between 38 and 98% nutrition value worldwide. Randoms going around circles, birds flying out the sky, right? Fish going around circles, right? And they're losing alpha beta bacteria worldwide, and we're losing 50 to 100% of alpha beta bacteria, which is the immune system, because we're in the wrong mindset with unnatural selections and make so many unnatural selections we do not know what we do anymore. But we think we do, but we don't. We think we do, but we don't. That's why the world's declared crazy in 99. On my birthday, 27th December, crazy. A species in 2003. And now mental disorders and DDFX went from 2% in 1960, right, to 98% today with voltage reliability anti-clockwise, where body cells can corrosion collusion during the daytime and can only be at nighttime, except for 1.3%, right, that's clockwise that repair 24 hours a day. And it's not who you think on screens, I can guarantee you that. It's not who you think on screens, I can promise you that. Everybody here is an actor living in a 5-sense world on a screen all day. And everybody making videos is the same thing, right? The only two people that can mastermind with a clockwise DNA, right, in Europe is Mastermind Xiying and Winner Breathing, Winner himself. They're the only two that can mastermind with clockwise DNA. And there's not one mastermind that can use 100% brain and clockwise DNA in America. We can't find one. Not one anywhere in America, right? We found a couple of Indians, a couple of Mayans, right? A few Africans, Australians, right? Children mastermind, monks and Buddhists, and people that are off the grid in village environments, not attached to radio waves and the wrong impulse, and not listening to TV and screens all day, right? And using the same behavior the Westerners are. Westerners are most back to front, especially sitting on the screens and self-proclaimed prophets. They don't know what they're doing, nor does the pastor preaching Christian New Age anywhere else in the world, because they're confused inside their own personality. I'm not saying they're evil, but they're all sitting in their personality. And they do not know what they do because they have amnesia, right? Trapped in a reincarnation trap, and can only 7 to 15% of their brain. Only 7 to 15%. There's only a handful of masterminds that can use 100%. Only a handful of masterminds that can mastermind use 100% that's living in their spirituality in the celestial Brahma state. The others, the other 1.3%, 125 million, is thinking instinctively, right, between 5% and 95%. But there's only 113 that can use 95 to 99%. And they're the biggest mastermind we call the elect in the world in DNA studies done. And there's only a handful of us here. And I'm the leader in this biggest research ever conducted in global history, sitting with the two top bowlers and two top people from the think tank in a 6.5-hour interview. And trust me, it gets fucking complicated, right? But I'm the leader being suppressed and oppressed by 99.999% of the Western population. Yet I'm number one primordial being in the world with the biggest study ever done. Okay, think about that. I get oppressed and stone thrown at the most by every single Westerner that doesn't care because they can't feel the truth anymore and they've got no faith. No matter what comes out of their mouth, when they throw stones at me, they throw stones at the only person in the whole world proven with DNA studies done that can do every single thing that Christ can and more, right, with that kind of ability and DNA studies done. And that's just how it is. And when I fix my leg myself like this, it becomes the most powerful confirmation for myself. Wow, I can fix it myself, and I did do it myself. And from that moment, right, I went through the biggest, most powerful divine intervention you could ever begin to imagine. The next day, most powerful event I ever had, right? Okay, where things just boom far, right? When it's a whole different dimensional field, right? Completely switched over into another dimensional field. And I've been living in that dimension since, right? And it's been complicated to deal with this world and everybody in this world. Really, really difficult. Once you cross over through the light of the tunnel and you stay there and you're living in your celestial primordial state and you're not living your personality but control your vessel from the outside in, like Keanu Reeves in the Matrix, right? Once you cross over and you resurrect, you are in your primordial state out here and you don't know who I am. I didn't know who I was neither. Not until this happened. I thought I knew who I was in my personality, with my mentality, but I had no fucking idea who I was until this happened. And then Kim died, literally. Kim's personality, I use this memory, I use this memory box, I use this grammar and all the damage he's gone through. I use his experience, I use his vessel and everything he's gone through in his life and everything's been put through. But I now take charge of his vessel and I didn't know who I was until I went through this. And when I died in 2012, I got pushed out of my vessel and my own personality walked away. I watched my own personality walk away. I didn't faint or drop down. I got pushed out of my vessel, right? And I'm standing outside in my spirituality and nothing in the world prepared me for anything like this. But that's what happened to me. I got pushed out of my vessel and my own vessel's walking away. And I'm watching my own vessel walk away and thinking, fuck me dead, man. What's happening here? Nothing in the world prepared me for this. I was shit scared. But I watched my vessel walk away like Jay. When I took him out of the vessel in a 40-day test, he goes over and tries to steal, can't get busted. And he didn't even know he wasn't there. Same thing, right? I got taken out of my vessel and my vessel's walking away. Outside the house, walking up the fucking street. And I'm watching myself walk away. I think, what's going on here, man? Nothing in the world prepared me for this. Then I die for 23 minutes. I wake up in the hospital 36 hours later. I'm powerless, Monday down. They told me I never walk in. I get up and walk out. Then I live on my right end for 3.5 years. And then I come here to this moment and they said, Kim, you can fix it yourself. Can I? And then I fix it, right? And the next day, wow, I had the greatest moment of my life ever in history, right? Most beautiful moment. I'll tell you, waking up from amnesia and the reincarnation trap and crossing over through the light of the end tunnel, right, is unbelievable. And learning to live there in that dimension field where everything is perfect, you have this aura around you that prevents you, right, from everything else hurting you around you. And it gives you the power, gives you the aura, gives you the sixth sense, gives you that spirituality, gives you the shield of shining armor. That's why you're told in the Bible, I'll come from the cave of prison with truth and masses with fire in my mouth, in raggedy clothes, like a thief in the night, in shining armor. And it's that armor that we have organically. And you discover that in 7 years in prison, when you go back into primordial state, okay? But when I come out of jail, I'm starting to go back in the prison in here again, because everybody else is in here, right, with that vibration, in negative fields, in their personality, in their mentality. And they're not the same anymore. And I came back, right? I found the cure that you medicine in the jail and come back to my primordial state, the same as 0 to 7. Then I come out of jail and wow, I shit myself because everything was so negative and people were so negative and no aura like me, right? And it scared me. It scared me. My parents and my family wasn't the same anymore. They were just personalities. And I thought, what's wrong with these people, man? There's something wrong with this world and all the atmospheres collapsed everywhere. And I could feel it, man, going 7 times faster. Nobody else can. They're just going with it. That's the whole problem. I can feel it, but they can't. And that scares me. That they're just going 7 times faster and faster and faster and faster, and they don't even know. And I feel all of it, man. And it's scary because I'm living in a time where time still like preserves. I'm not going faster again to nowhere. And they are. They're going faster again to a massive extinction, and they don't even know they're moving that fast. They don't even know how fast they're moving. They don't even know. They're sitting on screens all day and don't have enough hours a day and don't even know what's going on. When you're connected to life, nature, and things in harmony with, you can feel it, man. You can feel the animals, you can feel the whole globe, you can feel everything in nature, everything in life screaming out at you. And you feel the truth, and you're living in the truth, not in the mind, like everyone else does, that does not know what they're doing, because they create the placebo effect, anti-clockwise, without even realizing it. They're the ones destroying the whole world. They're the ones taking themselves into extinction. Their own decisions become their own judgment. And that's why animals go around circles over the earth. And that's why buying syndromes worldwide with peer reports escalating out of control. And peer reports in every hospital in the world says it's why a body snatching rise, a zombie apocalypse. And people's lost their magnetic pulse, all their magnetic fields. They're 27 fields. They're living their mind. And it's taking them into what? Concussion and extinction. Dizzy spells, insomnia, can't sleep right, vertigo, right, fatigue, concussion, death, right? The sixth mass extinction stripped from the sixth sense for the sixth time, and it's accelerating with mental disorders, gene defects, cancer, blood clots, myocarditis, going right out of control with gene defects. And it's been happening since 1960. It's not caused by the vaccination. That's a delusion everyone lives in a massive global delusional state, and blame everything on the now moment because they have no genetic memory. They have no concept. They'll declare the species that's crazy in 99. They'll declare a species in 2003 with delusional parasitosis, and they don't believe in it because they're mentally insane. They believe in nothing. Only what the voice of the mind tells them. The voice of the mind that's ultimately designed for extinction is the only thing they believe in. They don't believe in any declaration. They don't believe in Revelation. They don't believe in the Bible. They don't believe in DNA. They don't believe in stellar study research with all the evidence that came out in 1999. They don't believe in any of it. They're a species in denial, and they don't care anymore because there's no love, there's no care. They have no relationships or codependent relationship with anyone, no soulmate relationship. They don't know what they're doing. They're just actors, zombies, right, and robots. That's all they are. They've got no feelings. They've got no sixth sense. And when they can't use their natural abilities, they're going in a sixth mass extinction, stripping the sixth sense for the sixth time, and it will affect every single person in the world because it's accelerating and it's affecting everyone, no matter what they say, no matter how they think about things. And no religious political cult is going to get them out of this unless they restore their sixth sense and cross over. It's the only thing that will save them. Stick your head for the light in a tunnel, as Plato says, right? Take the red pill, you cannot go back because you wake up from amnesia, and I do it in 40 days. Once you break free and cross over, you cannot go back, and that's judgment. Then you go for a transformation, you cannot go back. Take the red pill, you cannot go back. Stick your head at the cave, you'll never go back. The light at the end of the tunnel. Once you stick your head through the light in the tunnel, you'll never go back. Never. You'll never fail again. You'll never make the wrong decision again because you take control of your vessel from the outside in instead of the inside out. And when you do that, you've got it. And it's not what you think. It's a completely different way of thinking. It is not what you think. It's not what you think at all. Mastering the mind is mastering the mind, not a high IQ with grammar, not sophisticated knowledge, not selecting word grammar, not selecting right with reasoning. It's not like that. It's outside the mind. It's the quantum mechanics of a relationship and living by it. Not to judge one another, not to cause people stumble, but help you get back on the feet. To have the greater understanding, the mind does not know what you do, and have the greater understanding of why no one else knows what they're doing, and why Christ said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do, because you do not know what you do when you're living your mind in mentality with a high IQ and all the grammar you select and what you depend on so much. You don't know what you're doing. Outside the mind is totally different. It's a vortex of information with a universal language that gives you divine power to command nature. But you have to be in the most positive, right fields, the righteous fields. Righteousness is the key factor. 8 tools of righteousness, as they said by the children masterminds, and the Aboriginals live by it for thousands of years. They know exactly what they're talking about. They can levitate a 1-ton stone. We couldn't levitate a thimble. They can levitate a 1-ton stone. You couldn't levitate a thimble. Trees, bend down and talk to them. Literally bend down to their vibrations and their aura. When you stand near a 450-year-old and you go stand next to him, you are gobsmacked and speechless, man. You've never felt something like this in your life. It's like, wow. It's like they have telekinesis and they can remove every voice in your mind from the 5 sense world and 5D world. They just remove every vibration from you because their aura is that powerful. It pours like all over the top of you, like the glory of love. That's exactly what Christ talked about. That's exactly what the Bible talks about. We have this ability. We have this ability. And they goddamn well do. And that's one thing I didn't do, right? Listen, they said on reports by Squeezy in 2 years, I created the most positive atmosphere in the southeast corner of Queensland, my nightclub. And a lot of people said I changed the atmosphere with everybody's life. Okay, and I know how to do that. But not like these people, right? Okay, now I say I'm son of Christ, son of David, son of Abraham, because of that genetic process and the genetic memory that you also have in your DNA, exactly the same genetic memory. Trust me, I know. I'm not the only one. And when you get adapted into this, look at me today where we have come from, right? Let me tell you something. I'm nothing compared to Christ, and I'll never compare to that. He was perfect at 24. I fucked up massively. I've got plenty of damage, and I've got plenty of holes in my knowledge. Plenty of holes. No matter what, I've got tons to learn. I'm nothing like him. And I can tell you this, standing next to a 10-foot tall Aboriginal, holy crap, I couldn't compare with that. The aura that they have, the aura that's so powerful, when you stand next to them, you are gobsmacked and speechless because you've never felt like this before in your life. The most powerful miracles I ever had, the most powerful divine intervention, right? This was up there with the orb of light, with that kind of relationship. It was right up there, exactly the same. Holy crap. Holy crap. Nothing on earth has ever made me feel so high. And so much love pouring over me. No sex, no drugs, no rock and roll, and put them all in the same basket does not add up to what they make you feel in that moment. When you stand next to one of these species, if they'll allow you to go next to them, because they can feel you coming for miles. And I had a calling that called me out there. And man, when I met them, holy crap, I was speechless, and it was like I fell down on my knees and was gobsmacked with what I felt. And I nearly went into tears, man, immediately. I couldn't believe the love coming off them and the frequencies of their aura. It was so powerful that I never knew such thing existed. But God showed me it did. He wanted me to know. He took me there. He designed it like this so I would know the truth from these people in the biggest study ever done by Gemma Givers, the last human beings born on earth, born in the outback of Australia, and the most loving, compassionate creatures, and the most spiritual with divine power, right, in such a way that grow 10 times more fruit with 10 times more nutritious value, and they can change the fauna so powerfully and every living thing around them that we realize we have the power, right, to absolutely replenish the planet and restore everything in life. We have a God-given power that powerful. That's why the Placebo test in 2009 is critical, right? If you understand the power we have, the divine power to command nature like this is beyond the mind with 10 times more nutritional value. Imagine what that does for our fauna and our holy breath of life. The oxygen, 10 times more powerful. The vapor, the conductor, every single thing that we connect with, 10 times more powerful. 10 times more powerful clarification, 10 times more sensitivity, sensitive feelings, right? And it's fight, flight, mate. It's like you're on meth all the time. Like, it's so powerful. It's beyond the mind. And it's like you are just on meth, man. Pins and needles all over your body. You know what? The mind gets scared. It fucking gets scared with power like this. It has no idea what's going on. And this is the adverse effects that we're going through, right? With this kind of power that's so powerful that people don't know how to deal with it because they're living in their mind. And the mind will give them the worst adverse effects, the opposite effects with this kind of power. If you balance yourself through fight, flight, mate, and do everything in practice and preach here, you'll find the balance where you take the power and the glory of love, right, and the divine power into your heart. Take Christ in your heart and you adapt into this. You're going to adapt into this, and it's so fucking far beyond the mind, you have no idea what you're missing out on. But when you get balance to this, it's just a speechless wow factor. So powerful, you have to learn to feel it yourself and go through it yourself. You have to go through the crossover and the rebirth. You have to go back in your primordial state. You have to go back in your child, back in your innocent, back in your celestial primordial state. And trust me, that's what all this is all about. This is the cure of every single thing you suffer from in the greatest psychological warfare happening worldwide and spreading like a virus with the placebo effect, okay, anti-clockwise. Trust me, I know. Trust me. Okay? And you have to understand the placebo effect that's spreading like a virus here and affecting volcanoes and every single thing sitting on social media platform in 5 sensitive and negative fields. It doesn't mean they're evil. It means they don't know what they're doing. It means they're delusional. And everybody's delusional, believe it or not. And the only way to get out of that is this way, crossing over. We're also delusional, right, from 1,000 years of damage in our DNA that we're carrying with all those genetic memories and all those ancestral tools that we are all carrying today. And we've got to get through this and cross over in order to repair it in our DNA. DNA is clear the book of life. Trust me, that's what we need to follow. We need to follow these tools correctly, because the mind is our worst enemy. It plays tricks and games on us, and we are in present and more than here, and it's ultimately designed for human extinction. Don't be afraid of this. This is the liberation for the first time in history. We can all do what Christ can and more, and never suffer the consequence ever again in a new time where time sensitive life possessed, right, for 1,000 years with sevenfold wisdom and knowledge to live the tree of life. And trust me, guys, it is magnificent. The greatest time to be alive.